What's up, everybody? It's your boy back with the next video. I'll be reacting to 3 disturbing true unknown creature stories. So this is from Mr. Nightmare, I believe. So I'll have a link in the description down below so you can go check out this video, his channel yourself. Real good videos over there. I never had any unknown creature encounters. Even when I was young, when I used to really like going in the woods, never had anything weird. I mean, deer. Never saw a Bigfoot or anything like that. One time I saw like a group of homeless people in like a forest preserve, but that was about it. They're not creatures, obviously, but that was just startling as a kid. Just walked up and it was like, I remember they just like looked at me, and I just looked at them and I was just like, and just left. How old was I? Well, it wasn't a forest preserve. This was down south. It was just woods, and I just walked off. I was like, hey, y'all be Gucci now. Ain't no problem. But anyway, let's get into it. I said I'm gonna try not to talk as much because I want to get through quite a few of these because I have a lot of these like horror narrations or horror videos on my computer. They've been on my computer for a while, and I want to get through as many as I can today. So anyway, here we think it was just like it was like it moved like a real creature. It was just
this
like,
happened on a camping
like someone
trip
took up
with my girlfriend
picture
Alicia,
and, like,
my
pulled
best friend Rodney, and his girlfriend Amanda. My dad told me about a perfect place to go camping right by a big lake surrounded by a dense forest. A trail from a nearby parking lot would lead straight to the lake. His directions were straightforward, and it was actually easy to get to the lake. We got there as the sun was on its way down and the sky was turning that beautiful orange. The lake was calming, and the sound of the breeze hitting the leaves was peaceful. We had our tent set up, and there was still a hint of orange in the sky, though it was very dark in the woods by now. There was a slight orange reflection on the calm lake. It was very warm out,
and
Amanda suggested we all jump in the water. I was kind of up for it, as my dad said it would be perfect to jump in. For that reason, we all brought towels. The girls seemed more eager than Rodney and I, though. The two got into their underwear and walked into the lake, exclaiming it was actually warm. I told them I'd go in after setting up the campfire at least, since we had already gathered some wood. Starting the fire proved to be especially difficult for me, because I just couldn't get the wood to catch.
Crickets.
I'm not exactly a Boy Scout. Rodney took over, and as I watched him try to start the fire, one of the girls started screaming and flailing around in the lake. Amanda looked just as confused as Rodney and I. Then Alicia went underwater for a few seconds, and Amanda started to scream she's drowning. I took off my shirt and ran as fast as I could into the water. But when I got to where she was, the water was only up to maybe my waist. I saw her arms still flailing out above the water and splashing about, and I pulled her up above the water. I yelled, "What the hell happened?" She didn't answer right away and ran straight for the campsite, seemingly out of breath. Halfway there, she turned and yelled, "Get out of the water." Amanda and I looked at each other and listened. As I began moving out of the lake, I felt something strong grab around my ankle and try pulling me down. There was a sharp, piercing feeling cutting into my ankle as well. I yelled in a panic and kicked whatever it was with my free leg until I was able to break free. We made it back to the campsite, and Alicia was already sitting down on a cooler, putting pressure on an apparent wound on her ankle. I sat down on another cooler and checked my ankle, and there was a deep but small gash on the right side of my ankle, which was pouring out blood. I told Rodney to get us both some band-aids for my first aid kit.
It is time to leave.
After patching up the wounds, we felt more relaxed and at ease. We just wanted to figure out what the hell that was that grabbed
No,
us.
fuck figuring shit
I
out.
said
Just
it might have
leave.
been an eel. Rodney questioned if eels even live in lakes like this.
Yeah, what the fuck?
Alicia said it didn't feel like an eel or a fish. It felt more like a claw. I got chills as she said it, because I got what she was saying, but how would that make any sense? Regardless, we stuck around because whatever got us was in the water, and we were on land. Nothing could happen now.
Unless it can
At this point, it
breathe
was dark
air.
out. The sun was completely gone, and the only light was from the fire. We were a couple beers deep, talking about life, about mutual friends, and occasionally bringing up that thing in the water again. All was well, until a splash came from out in the water.
Ain't no way in hell.
We all
I'd
looked
stay
over our
here.
shoulders at the same time, out to the pitch-black lake. Probably just a fish, we figured. We
Yes,
resumed
that's
conversation
y'all
for
problem
a few
assuming
seconds,
shit.
but then there was another splash. It didn't sound like a little fish jumping out of the water. It sounded like the kind of splashes you'd hear when a person is walking through waist-deep water. The girls wanted us to go check the lake,
How out is
so Rodney
specific.
and I took a couple flashlights and went to the edge of the lake, where we were still hearing noises. With the two lights pointed at the water, we scanned the calm surface of the lake until Rodney stopped me and said, "What is that?" I looked at where his light was pointed. There was this object in the water. Well, at first I thought it was an object, but then I realized it resembled the head of some creature. Definitely not any kind of creature that would live in a lake.
The Loch Ness Monster.
It seemed like it was just sticking its head out of the water, and we could see the reflection of its eyes. It was looking at us. Then it moved, as it rised up slightly out of the lake, making another splashing noise. That's when Rodney and I screamed "go" to the girls. I remember Rodney saying, "Take all your important stuff and go," which was a smart idea. I took all my valuables and left the tent and bigger things. We ran back down the trail to the parking lot, packed the car, and took off down the parkway. The next day, I returned with my dad to collect the tents, but everything that we left in the campsite was destroyed. The tents were shredded, the coolers were scratched and thrown across the site. I told my dad about the creature in the lake. I showed him the gash in my ankle and asked him what could have done this. He said he had no earthly idea, and we left in a hurry. None of
Sheesh.
us ever returned to that lake.
Y'all got lucky. See, that's what I'm talking about. You should have left to begin with. Corpse husband.
My house sits next to a nature preserve on Long Island, New York. I live alone most of the time, besides when my girlfriend
Is
who
this
lives out
that
of state comes
streamer,
to visit.
Corpse Husband?
Well, I can't say I live completely alone. I have two German shepherds, Tate and Moose. They sleep downstairs by the back door of the house. Last week, for 3 nights in a row, I would wake up to the two of them barking in the middle of the night at the back door. The first night, I just peeked from the door window into the yard, which was empty. The second night, I actually went outside to the patio to look around, but there wasn't anyone there. On the third night in a row of waking up to barking, I told myself that was it. Someone was creeping around my property every night, causing my dogs to go crazy. I put Tate on his leash and took him out to the yard. Weirdly, he seemed more calm now that he was outside. He wasn't barking at anything. I walked him around the backyard and by the tree line to the woods for a little bit, trying to help him pick up on whatever the two had been barking at the past 3 nights. Then he started. By the tree line, he started tugging on his leash and barking at something in the woods. Obviously, I couldn't see too far into the woods as it was nighttime, so I let him lead the way into the woods. If someone were to be trespassing on my property every night, I figured the best way to scare them off would be having my dog chase after them. Tate kept pulling and barking as we got deeper into the woods. I was starting to lose my breath just trying to keep up with him. He seemed to be really
Why are
locked
you
into
going
something specific in front of us.
deeper into the
But
woods?
eventually Tate stopped pulling and barking, and just stood there with his ears bent back, as if he were in a defensive position. He suddenly looked scared, as if he was looking straight ahead at something. I tried looking ahead into the dark woods, but I could only see so much. There was this cracking of a stick or small branch a little ahead that confirmed there was a presence with us in the woods. I took this as a time to call out. Whoever's out there, you need to stop trespassing on my property. If you don't, I'll either unleash my dogs on you or call the police. Whichever I feel necessary to do. There was no kind of response or signs of acknowledgement. just another crunch of a twig or stick being pressed into the ground by something. Once again confirming there was someone or something standing maybe 10 yards away. I whistled to Tate to follow as I turned us around and headed back to the house. Tate kept looking back every 3 seconds. I'd have to pull him forward just to keep us moving. But then I heard a footstep close behind us, and Tate started to growl and bark again. It was now that I truly started to feel threatened. I didn't have my phone on me, I didn't have my flashlight, my only sense of protection was Tate.
Wait a minute, you don't have a
flashlight?
flashlight?
This sound, this unexplainable sound. It was this clicking type noise mixed with this humming sound, almost like a giant bug. Tate started going crazy again. He was barking and pulling, but I held him back.
Man.
I kept looking at what he was trying to lunge towards, and I finally saw something.
I would have been.
It was a set of glowing eyes, only the eyes were set very high off the ground, not down low like from a cat or a raccoon. I started to run back towards my house now. I could see the light from my back patio shining through the trees now. I made it through the tree line back to my backyard.
Why did you walk that deep into the fucking
I ran Tate to the back door and let him inside.
Someone walking around your property.
I turned back to the trees at the opposite end of my yard and I just stood there, listening and waiting.
I would have stopped at the tree line. Like, hey,
a rustle in the bush made me turn my head about 20 degrees to the right. I saw a figure standing in the woods near the tree line. My patio light lit up the outline of the body somewhat. It looked like it had the shape of a humanoid-like figure, but it was crouched down, kind of hiding behind a little bush. It had extremely long-looking arms in comparison to the rest of its body, and on the lower half of its face, all I saw was black, almost resembling a big gaping mouth. I keep saying it because I knew what I was looking at couldn't be human. I went inside, shut all the blinds, and took my dogs upstairs to my room. I reported an unidentified creature in the preserve to the police. I gave my best description on the phone, and the woman on the other end asked me to call back if the person or creature were to actually enter my private property. Basically, calling the police was for my own peace of mind, but they didn't send anyone. I've been having my dog sleep in my room with me since last week.
Yeah, they will come out there and shoot you to death if you have any more problems.
I'll update everyone if anything changes.
Man, it's time to build like a big ass fence around the tree line.
My wife and I have lived in the Chapel Hill, Tennessee farmhouse for over 15 years, and for 14 straight years, nothing out of the ordinary ever happened. Our kids have all moved out. It's just me and the wife in the house.
Kind of like one of my cousin's house.
February of 2019,
driveway's a little
bizarre
bit
things started happening. I woke up in the night to my wife shaking me. She said she heard a noise outside the window. She wanted me to go check. I simply walked over to the window, lifted it up,
and I gotta go check.
Look outside.
Shit.
It was chilly out there.
Don't give me that because I'm a
man.
man.
Looking outside for long, but the coast was clear. I shut the window and assured my wife it was okay, then crawled back into bed. Before we could even fall asleep again, there was a noise that made both of us sit up. A sharp but quick click at the window. My wife is not scared, but she grabbed my arm, clearly worried. She asked me to take the shotgun out there and see who it was. I told her to relax, and I checked the window one more time. I was shocked to find a small scratch in the glass from the other side. I said, "Honey, look at this," and she came over. She put her hands over her mouth and said, "Oh my." What did it? We didn't have a clue. Must have been some big animal, I figured.
Wait a minute, this is the ground floor?
The next morning, I went outside to inspect the outside by the window. There were no footprints in the dirt
it's the ground floor.
Nothing strange at all outside, actually. So we move on to the next night. It was a rainy, warmer night for February. My wife and I tucked in under the sheets again, and once again, there was a sound that could be heard over the rain outside. It was this scraping type sound, muffled of course because it was coming from outside. The sound seemed to be moving closer to the window, then it stopped. My wife and I, sitting up again, looked at each other, and she didn't even have to tell me to go outside this time. I took the shotgun from under the bed again, put on my raincoat, and ran outside as fast as my old bones would allow. My wife turned on the light.
Bones, how old are you?
Gave me enough light to see these huge scrapes in the vinyl siding. They looked exactly like claw marks. Then I looked down into the mud that I was standing in and noticed these big feet marks that stopped right before the window and then turned back in the direction of the woods. I analyzed the marks the best I could, even though they were quickly washing away from the rain. These didn't look like marks from boots,
I was just
shoes,
shoot a
or
few
any
rounds
animal that I
into
knew
the
of.
woods, guy.
It looked like
As long as
these
you're not
huge
near
footmarks
any
with claws on
houses.
the ends. We don't have black bears where we live. 15 years here and we've never seen one. So this just made no sense. I suddenly felt unsafe being out there, even with the shotgun. So I hurried back inside. I told my wife there's some big animal out there, and that as long as we stayed inside, we were safe. We don't have blinds on our bedroom windows, as we don't need privacy from anyone. No one comes out on the property anyway. All I could do was tell my wife to go to sleep.
I don't give a fuck.
The next night was where things really took the turn for the worst. I woke up around 3 a.m. My wife was still asleep. I sat up, thinking I might have heard something. I realized it was chilly in the room. I looked at the window, and it was open. But that wasn't the first thing I noticed. The first thing I noticed was the head, leaning through the open window into our bedroom.
Oh my god.
My best description of the head? Inhuman. From the size and shape. It was bigger, and this had a more conish shape. As for facial features, it was just too dark to see any, and it all happened too quickly. I let out one big scream, a type of scream I hadn't heard leave my own body in decades. I went under the bed for the shotgun.
I didn't know I was still
Thing at
capable
the
of
window
this
was
scream.
already gone. My wife was screaming in reaction to my
What
scream.
you should have got was the shotgun.
I ran to
first.
the window to slam it shut and twist the lock. I told my wife we're sleeping in our son's old room that night. Believe it or not, this was almost a year ago now, and that creature, whatever it was, has never returned. But for 3 straight days, that thing kept coming back to our window, and on the 3rd night, it was halfway into our bedroom.
Well, I mean, halfway is a bit of a stretch. It just, his head was just in there. But yeah, that's what the hell happened? Oh, that was weird. Like the OBS made it look like my mouse went across my screen, but it didn't. It's still, well, I left it at the top right. Anyway, that is horrifying. Like, if I wake up, one thing, I wouldn't have my window open at night like that. I mean, another thing, I'm on the 2nd floor, so, well, my bedroom is on the 2nd floor. But I wouldn't have my window open at night like that. I mean, I guess maybe because I lived in places where that's just an invitation for somebody to come in and rob you. Just leave your windows unlocked. Like, I never understood that when people, like, they either live somewhere where the crime rate starts going up, or they move somewhere else where it's more enclosed and a lot more people, so it's, the crime rate may be higher. And they're like, I'm not locking my doors and locking my windows. Where I come from, we didn't have to do that. And I'm like, even in towns where pretty much everybody knows everybody. I've lived in places like that, where towns small enough where everybody knows everybody, or at least you've seen this person before, around town. You may not talk to them, but you've seen them. And people still lock their doors, still lock their windows, even if you're not really worried about somebody, like, coming in and killing you or nothing like that. But people, kids, like, they're just like, oh, an open window, they'll just go in there. They might not even steal anything. They ain't shit else to do. They just go in. And then some kids will steal, because you gave them, or even adults, because you gave them the opportunity to steal something. A lot of people who aren't, thieves or criminals or anything like that, if you give them the opportunity, they'll see it, they can take it. They can just take it. I ain't gotta spend money. I can just take this and leave. Like, hell yeah. You know, it's like why wouldn't it's like someone when you offer to pay for their drinks or their food or whatever, like, okay, before they order something, and then like, okay, and then they order, you know, the most expensive drink or meal on the goddamn menu. You know, it's just like that. You give them the opportunity, like a lot of people gonna just take it. So that, like that's that. I mean, like I said, they live out in they clearly live out in a wooded area, in a rural area, I should say. But still, like even then, like you need like when I lived in Mississippi, people have lights and they have big bright lights and they usually on motion detector at night. So when some comes up, that big ass bright light shines out, you know, away from their house. So usually, you know, it blinds people coming, you know, towards the house. That's why it's shining like kind of away from their house, and so you can see it wakes you up. You know, a bright ass light coming from outside. So something's coming, even if it's just like a squirrel or raccoon or something like that. There's just a rabbit or something that's just walked past. And oh, you know, it alerted me and I saw it. But you don't have your fucking windows open or unlocked. Like people, I don't care where you're from, how nice it is. You always lock your shit because you never know. Even if you know everybody, somebody could be just traveling through town. I've also seen people like that. They just coming through town and I'm gonna stay for like a week or two and then they're gonna move on. You know, and some people like that be like, oh, especially if they like have a nomad existence. That, oh yeah, I could take some shit and then be gone. You know. Now the thing is, they have to do it quickly because if you come into a town where everybody knows everybody, and then stuff starts getting, people start getting robbed and shit, they break-ins in their houses, and it didn't start until you got there. The police, you gonna be the first one police come up to talk to. That's why people like get this shit and they move on, you know. But gotta do it quickly, I guess. But yeah. Anyway, hope you enjoyed my reaction to one. If you did, make sure to hit that thumbs up button down below. Make sure to subscribe when you're here. Hit that bell. You'll be notified when I upload new videos. Comment down below. Share this video. I'll see y'all next time. Peace.